You're listening to the Belmar Bites podcast, brought to you by Belmar Consulting. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. This is episode 15 of Belmar Bites, and Matt, today we are celebrating a pretty amazing milestone in the history of the organization. So we're releasing this on September 25th, 2025, which coincides with our 15-year anniversary. It's our 15th episode, so certainly the stars have had to align for all of this to happen. None of that was planned, but it just worked out that way. And so today, I thought we could cover, I guess, a trip down memory lane in terms of our history, and we can talk about, I guess, just some of the things we're excited about as we look out over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So why don't I kick us off with just talking a little bit about the history of the org. We've talked about this on previous episodes. We've also got a lot of this content is on our website under the About Us section, and just gives a bit of history in terms of who we are as an org. But I guess if you're listening to this, rather than hitting our site, you can listen to it versus read it. So our story goes something like this. We've been around for more than 20 years, more than the 15 years as a Salesforce partner. But we, prior to Salesforce, were working with other tools. We could even call them competitive tools to Salesforce. And the impetus for starting as a Salesforce partner really was driven from a need for survival. Salesforce was very, very dominant, showing up on every opportunity before we were officially a partner. And just after spending probably 6 months, maybe even a year, evaluating, looking at, do we join them or do we compete against them? It was very obvious that joining them made the most sense, and certainly looking back at that decision, it was a very important one in terms of our organization. And so here we are 15 years later, and we've had a pretty cool ride with Salesforce as they've scaled up, and we've seen our organization scale up. We've started, and I think you've heard me talk about this a lot, Matt. But when we started, we were really just working with any organization that needed Salesforce, and for the most part, those were sales-based organizations. In some cases, they were service-based organizations, and they were consuming one of the few Salesforce products that existed at the time. But as time moved on and Salesforce broadened and scaled, the opportunity for us to specialize really became clear. And while we didn't formally announce or formally create a team that was focused on public sector, we found ourselves working with a lot of public sector organizations, mostly Western Canada, but even across Canada. And as we worked with those organizations and delivered great value to them, we found ourselves getting introduced to nonprofit and charitable orgs, both in Canada but also in the U.S. And it's interesting when looking back, we didn't go looking for that business. It really came looking for us based on the quality of work that we were delivering to our public sector clients. And these nonprofits, who in many cases were funded by public sector, were seeking out an organization like ourselves that could help them execute on really just delivering on their mission. And they needed a better way to do it other than the collection of tools that they had been using. So we, a number of years after starting down the Salesforce path, we formalized a team around nonprofit. And I know, Matt, you were in the org prior to that getting officially announced, but you probably remember those days well. We were doing a lot of work in public sector, and then just all of a sudden it's like the script flipped for us. It's like all of a sudden just so many nonprofits. So I mean, when you think back on that, give me some thoughts as to, you were newer to the org at that time, but you certainly helped stick handle and navigate our way into that nonprofit ecosystem. So, what's a memory that you got?
Yeah. Maybe before I share the memory, Scott, I think you got to give yourself some credit. You totally had this plan to have the 15th episode on the 15-year anniversary. So don't rob yourself of the planning master class there. But I think what would be helpful, given I've been part of half of that journey, I'd love to just. I think it'd be cool to to go back in history and me kind of poke and prod and get some clarity on what was it like through that journey as well. And I think that'd be insightful for those listening, but also uh, helps shed some context to as to where we're at today. Because
Sure.
I know you went through the 3x speed version of the history lesson. But I'm going to ask questions about what it was in those first years. So I guess when you started in this space, you had mentioned that you kind of you were getting your lunch eaten or taken from Salesforce when you're up against them before on a legacy CRM, and you decided, well, if you can't beat them, why not join them?
Yeah.
But walk me through that first year when you decided to become a Salesforce partner 15 years ago. Where did you get your business from? Like, how did you
Yeah. Yeah.
how
Like
did you and how did you
post making
determine
that
public
decision. Yeah.
sector was the starting point?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, on September 25th of 2010, filled out the partnership form on the Salesforce.com website, and that started the journey. Um, there was there was really no guide in terms of how to do it. I started reaching out, picking up the phone, having conversations with account executives at Salesforce, and communicating to them who we were, what we could do in terms of the types of solutions that we had worked on before becoming a Salesforce partner, and at that time there were a lot of opportunities that were uh, being handled by, I guess, what by comparison, what was a very small number of AEs compared to what they have today. So they really needed help and support in running deal cycles, similar to what they need today. But the just the it was like a feeding frenzy back then in terms of just the number of orgs that were wanting to move in the direction of Salesforce, and so yeah, our sales strategy then was really just build really close relationships with AEs and support them well, help them win deals, and we then would get brought in on more and more opportunity.
Did you find that hard to convince AEs 15 years ago because your historic experience would have been on a different platform? I guess,
Yeah.
how were those initial conversations?
Yeah. Well, I think we were intentional in terms of communicating to Salesforce that we were 100% in. I mean, the other tools and those other tools that I was referring to earlier were products that Sage Software had developed, and they were, at the time they were really great tools, but the future was very clear that cloud and browsing through, or accessing your tool through a browser was really the future. So, uh, convincing Salesforce AEs actually wasn't that difficult because, we effectively communicated that we had burned the boats. We were no longer working with the other tools, and we were all in on the Salesforce relationship. So, I mean, I think they saw the I guess capabilities that we had as an organization, and our ability to both help them sell, but then also implement, uh, was evident, and we quickly earned their trust to bring us in on deals.
Did you was it kind of just opportunistic at the start of just going where the opportunity was, or how did you described it as public sector, and then today there's
Yeah.
nonprofit, but how did you land in that specifically public sector space?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess it was when we first started. It was let's just take any opportunity we can get our hands on. So
Mhm.
the way Salesforce organized themselves then, and I guess that, they still do today, is their account executives are focused on a particular customer cohort. So back then the territories were more geographic, and they were based on organization size, like in terms of headcount. So we got in with a handful of AEs that were just feeding us deals. But what led us into public sector was uh, we were actually quite busy working away on a whole bunch of projects, and piping more deals, and doing everything we could to continue winning deals. Uh, and we got into working with public sector through an RFP process that was actually in British Columbia. Actually got an email from uh, an individual that was working in the province, and they had been using Salesforce, and he said, "Hey, here's this RFP. If you're interested in responding, we'd love to hear from you." So, uh, that's a much longer. There's a much longer version of this story, but that got us going in the public sector world, and we yeah, it just similar to what we were doing with Salesforce at that time. It got us then connected to a whole new cohort of AEs
Mm.
that had customers, had prospects, needed partners, and that led us really through that door and into what's now been pretty lengthy journey with the public sector team.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, that's helpful context. So we stepped through those years. Uh, Business is flowing. You described it as there was less. I don't know if this competition is the right word, but there was opportunity was teaming at that time. There was lots of opportunity in this space. You fast forward as you go throughout those years, um, and that transition from public sector to nonprofit. You'd mentioned the referral cycle, but maybe just spell out for those listening on this history lesson here. What was that, and how does that actually function between what's the relationship between public sector and nonprofit
Yeah.
organizations here?
At the time, there was really no relationship from a Salesforce perspective, but from a customer perspective, we were working with uh, a number of public sector organizations that were using Salesforce internally to serve the needs of their constituents or citizens, and they were. I mean, part of their mandate was also to fund charitable organizations or nonprofit organizations who would, in many cases, kind of deliver that last mile of service.
Right.
Uh, so they, without our knowledge, with just this all percolated up, sort of without us actually going to market, trying to sell to a nonprofit organization. They just we started getting introductions from our public sector customers. They were saying, "Hey, listen, I want to introduce you to so and so," and then at the same time, the phone would ring, or you get an email from an organization you'd never heard of and had no knowledge really of how they found us until we started that conversation. But it became pretty clear pretty quick that they were seeing what was happening in public sector, and they, in some cases, I mean, they themselves were logging into these tools that we had delivered for these public sector agencies, um, and that was kind of how they got connected to understanding that Salesforce, could potentially be a solution. So, um, yeah, so it was it's funny, when at various points in life or business, you see something kind of start to develop and then take off,
Right.
and you have to be right place, right time. You've got to have delivered great service. None of this would happen if we had not been delivering high quality projects for our customers. But because we were doing that, and sort of right
Yeah.
place, right time, uh, it was just very fascinating to see this take off for us.
Was the writing on the wall, yeah, in terms of just that shift over? I know that you described it 15 years ago. Salesforce was taking your lunch. Was the writing on the wall from being able to diversify and grow that nonprofit practice there, or did it feel more like a, okay, we got to do this. There's a lot of risk involved with this, or was it pretty evident?
Yeah, well, I guess I'd answer it this way. It wasn't, and I think I'm understanding what you're asking in this question, which is, like, were we looking to diversify? Was there risk? Was there a need to sort of broaden outside of what we were already doing. I suppose that's always true. I mean, that's,
Hmm.
even for us today, that's true. You're always trying to reduce risk and put get as many, I guess, using the egg and in the basket analogy, trying to get as many baskets, where you're getting opportunities from. But yeah, it was our business was actually really thriving. As we got connected to the nonprofit community, and I would say maybe another way to answer that is when we first got introduced and connected. Uh, I would describe it as, kind of the rings of a tree. There
Yeah.
were, the core public sector clients were at the center of that, and the next ring out was uh, they weren't really charitable organizations, but they called themselves nonprofit, meaning they were 100% funded by a government entity, but they were not collecting donations. They weren't an official charity. They weren't, in Canada, they weren't a CRA recognized
Right.
organization, or in the U.S. they weren't a 501(c)(3). Like these were broader public sector entities that were providing a service of some type in the community, and their mandate was to not be profitable, but to kind of get their books down to zero at the end of each year. So that was the next ring,
Right.
and then it was, the next ring out from that were the true charitable orgs. And
Yeah.
it's interesting when I think back on that. We I mean, I didn't really know that much about the nonprofit world. I mean, we had maybe delivered a few projects to a few customers, but it was nothing really significant. And
Hmm.
initially, I perceived that they didn't have money to spend, and they didn't have uh, sort of a team internally to help support this type of an application. But I've shared this story more times than I can remember. I was proven wrong very, very quickly that like this was a very, very interesting community, very interesting market, and
Hmm.
in many cases, very well funded and very sophisticated. And so it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, once we kind of figured that out, then it was like, hey, this is an awesome space to be working in. And it's I know we haven't got there yet in the conversation, but today now it represents more business for us than we do
Yeah.
in the public sector arena, which is just very interesting, and it's exciting for us.
Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate you walking through the history there. I'm gonna put you on the spot here in a sec. Don't worry, I'll go first. But you got to pick one memorable moment. I guess could be bad, could be good. I would prefer good. But what one memorable moment over the last 15 years, and then maybe while you're thinking about that, I'll insert my story into here. In that I joined about halfway through that Salesforce journey. So I've been at Belmar for 7.5 years, and just for by way of context, when I joined, it was a small team. I remember very distinctly, Scott, you sat to my left, and our director of operations, Rose, sat to my right, and there was a couple other folks in the room, but it was a tight knit, both physically and also as a
Yeah,
team, in that there was nowhere to go. So
yeah,
you talk about just you've heard the saying, people looking over your shoulder. I mean, you can't help but to look over people's shoulders when you're shoulder to shoulder in a room. But it was a lot of fun, and I remember joining. We weren't serving nonprofits at that time. We were very much for profit and public sector, and it was really interesting. Just some things that I recall back in the day is just being able to see these logos that you interact with, these service agencies, be it in the broader public sector or for-profit customers that you interact with on a daily basis, but now being able to flip onto the other side of that, and how can I serve them? How can I make their
hmm
lives easier with technology? So that was probably some of the most memorable early stage days, outside of the fact of obviously you love having your bosses on either shoulder of you. Is always makes for a fun dynamic. But I remember the days it was pizza parties, and not saying that we don't do pizza parties now, but it was pizza parties and cake and whatnot. It was a lot of fun.
yeah,
And then and perhaps my vantage point of this is a little different than your vantage point, but I remember those first days of, hey, there's this nonprofit opportunity here. is this real? Is this not real? And it became, like you said, pretty evident and pretty clear. And I think a common misconception people have is that nonprofits are unsophisticated and don't have any funding, when in reality, they have a mission. They're serving for impact, and oftentimes their needs are just as complex as a for-profit organization, and they can be just as progressive. They will have pressure. They'll have budgetary pressures, but who doesn't?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that is a common misconception, and I quickly learned that there is a lot of really interesting organizations in the nonprofit space that are craving that same technology need as well, and just they're looking for support. So I remember those first couple deals that we were across and projects we were across. It was a lot of fun. It was like a whole new language, but not really, if that makes any sense. In that, yeah, you can see the map over of, okay, well, hey, they could use this. I learned this with this contact center that I was just stood up last month. They can probably benefit from that. And just seeing that mapping and seeing the best practices being formed, at least from a technology standpoint, as I was doing those things, that was really memorable. And fast forward on this, so again, my 7.5 year journey. Fast forward to today, like you said, our nonprofit business surpasses our public sector business,
Mhm.
and we've been able to serve a lot of really amazing organizations. And that's probably as cliche and as cheesy as it sounds, that's probably been the most memorable part, is being able to now. I'm not just interacting with these public sector and for-profit customers that I see on a daily basis, but looking at, hey, I just saw a TV advertisement about this, or hey, I just listened to a podcast, or I heard about this fundraiser for this nonprofit, and thinking, oh, hey, that's actually I was part of that implementation on the back end there. So that's a really I like to use the mom test for a lot of the stuff that I do and things that I've done in business as well. Is it something that I would be proud of and something that I would not be ashamed of sharing with my mom
Yeah.
around work that I'm doing? And today that could not be more true. So, anyways, that's my injection into the
That's
story
your
here, Scott.
that's one of the highlights. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll share one of mine. We've, I mean, this is probably true in any industry that if you're implementing Salesforce in different, industries other than the ones that we're working in. So I'm assuming this is true there as well as it is here. But um, I think something that was really special for me was uh, delivering applications that, like for an organization, that you knew this tool was going to be in place and operating for the next many years. In
Yeah,
some cases, like I could think back. I won't actually call out individual clients on this, but I can just think back now to some of the conversations we would have, and they would communicate this idea that this is going to be a kind of a once in a X number of years opportunity for them to really see some significant transformation. And maybe just with more of our roots were in that for profit, where companies would just spend money, and if it didn't work, okay, well, throw that out, try something else. Okay, that didn't work, throw it out, until they got it right. This cohort of customers that we were working with, both from a public sector, but also um, from a nonprofit perspective, they just didn't have the
yeah,
budgets to just sort of spend some money and see if it worked, and if it didn't, oh well, no big deal, we've got more money to try something else. So I can think of numerous organizations that we worked with 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, and I mean they're still using like the public facing tool that they're using to serve their clients or citizens, uh, is the tool that we built. And
yeah,
it's aged well, in that as Salesforce have improved their technology and their platform, these tools have continued to evolve without the customers having to make in some
yeah,
cases any further investment. So it's pretty cool. I guess I think of it through that lens of a legacy. We've
yeah,
built tools for orgs that have been using these tools for many years, and will continue to use them for many years. And that's pretty amazing to be part of that type of a relationship, and that kind of an experience. So I would say that's I'm generalizing in that example, but it's pretty cool to see the impact that we've had.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I cannot agree more. I guess if you think about, we're 15 years, what does the next 15 years look like? And granted, it's a long time horizon, tough to tell the future,
Yeah.
but I guess as you look out into the future, what is something
Yeah.
that you use the word legacy? And I don't think we talk a lot, Scott, and I don't think I've heard you reference legacy. So maybe share with those listening and just what are we trying to accomplish here? What does
Yeah.
the next 15 years look like?
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I are pretty aligned on this in terms of just, continuing to build a business that, uh, is delivering value to our customers. At the end of the day, none of this is possible without our customers. So thank you, first and foremost, to our customers that have put their trust in us. Um, but yeah, I mean, 15 years is a long time horizon. But if I was to, I guess sort of where are we 15 years from now? Um, we've navigated at that point we would have navigated through, arguably the largest technology change that we've ever seen in our lives, with AI, and we're still very early in that,
Yeah,
in that evolution. But even 5 years from now, it's just going to look so different, and I'm really excited about where that leads us, because I mean now, Salesforce have AI capabilities in Agent Force and, Data Cloud, and they've got the foundation in place. But I think the real use cases that our customers are going to be benefiting from, like those conversations are now just starting. So uh, it was, I guess, Matt, it reminds me of sort of back, call it 15 years ago. There was a sales strategy, or a sort of
yeah,
there's this term called FUD, creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Like if you can create, we're not out to create fear in somebody's mind, but if you can sort of position in their mind a problem that they may not know that they have,
yeah,
and e- establish like the uncertainty that would rest on that particular issue, you can, invoke a customer to move forward with solving
yeah,
that problem. Uh, and so, I think phrase that we used to use is, what is your cloud strategy? And it's a little cliche to say, what is your AI strategy? But I feel like we're back where we were 15 years ago, where
hmm,
organizations were moving, like they were like transformational shifts away from, traditional IT to cloud. And now, I mean, cloud is pervasive. Now it's this shift in the direction of AI. So, uh, yeah, I mean, personally, I'm really excited. I think we as an organization are incredibly well positioned. We have customers that love working with us, and I just think there's, yeah, incredible opportunity for us as we look into the future.
yeah. It's really exciting. I mean, I think it's super, super interesting, super exciting, and just how quickly this landscape changes. And you've seen it and a move from, and I won't assign different ages to it, but you've seen it evolve over those last 15 years, and just seeing the rate of evolution over these next even months is crazy. I think of, I mean, just for full disclosure, I mean, I barely Google things anymore. I ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, like whatever it may be, because I can get that much more pointed of an answer. And that is a very basic. Who would have thought 5 years ago that that would be the primary interface? And again, I don't think everybody's doing what I'm doing, but certainly I've just stopped using that as an interface. I no longer have to scroll through 6 sponsored links and then get to the one maybe answer that I'm hoping for. So it
Yeah.
just, in terms of just that distillation of information and just the rate of evolution of AI, it is super interesting. And I think there's no better time right now. But as you were saying that, prompted a couple thoughts here of just being able to see that transformation. I think of it as we have helped a lot of our clients and are helping a lot of our clients write their books. And we will get to, I think the most fulfilling part is being able to see how that story ends, of you get to see how this ends and how they go off into the future as well. And this is not a TV series where you're left thinking, oh, I cannot believe they ended this show. It's a good conclusion, if you will, there. And I think the best part about it, you said Salesforce ages well. I've worked across a lot of technology platforms, and I can tell you they get dated, they get obsolete very, very quickly. And this is it's really exciting to be banding to Salesforce as well, because they're able to recognize that they need to evolve as a platform as well. And
Yeah.
it's always something new. Salesforce will always come up with something new, and that's often tied to what people should be doing,
Yeah.
what people should be thinking about. So I'm excited. I'm glad you kind of cast that into the future. I'm excited as well. And I think we are, as cliche as it sounds, I think we're just scratching the surface in terms of
Yeah.
what we actually can do for organizations. And that's the exciting part of that journey.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, this has been a good conversation, and I appreciate your insight into this. And it's been fun just talking about the last 15 and sharing a few ideas in terms of where we think we're going next. So with that, we'll wrap. And thanks everybody for listening. And be sure to check out other episodes of Belmar Bites.
Great. Thanks, Scott.
This has been another episode of Belmar Bites, brought to you by Belmar Consulting. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or on our website at belmarcloud.com.